So, so the heart opens, closes, it draws in, and it emits out. Opens, closes, draws in, and emits out. What do we let into our heart? What does it mean to have an open heart? Right? What do we take in? What are the boundaries of the heart? Sometimes it's talked about, and we'll get into this in just a second, but sometimes it's talked about how like the goal is to have an open heart all the time, right? Sometimes it's definitely talked about like follow your heart. What does that mean? Well, this basic dynamic of opening and closing, just really similar to how we explored in Vessel, right, has a lot to teach us. One of the things that's interesting, like, okay, so opens and emits out is kind of a natural pairing we think of, right? Um, I want to be open and emitting and creating and revealing and showing and expressing, and then closing and drawing in, right? I want to shut down for a while. I want to draw inward. I want to close. Um, but there's an interesting mystery, which now is no longer a mystery. There's an interesting mystery about this dynamic. Because when you look at the actual heart, when the heart opens, it draws in. The opening is an act of drawing in. So if a person's too open, they may be taking too much stuff in, right? The way that we emit out is through the heart squeezes, like, right? The heart closes and it emits out. The divine contracts and then the universe expands out from that divine contraction. This happens, like, this is the pulse of consciousness. It happens all the time. The first law of magic, said Eliphas Levi, is magnetism. And that means remaining closed, right? When we remain closed, then we can emit out safely, right? If we're too open, then we're liable to take too much stuff in. So this is something to explore. Openness, the state, if we understand that the universe exists in a constant state of pulsation, then openness is half of the equation. And openness is no more valuable within the great cosmic structure, or no more aligned to the great cosmic structure than closedness is. Openness is not better than closedness. Now, obviously, if you want to take it down to human terms, and there's a person who's really closed off and they never express any of their emotions, and they're, totally like, shut down, that's obviously not a healthy balance. And yeah, that person might be able to use a little more of what we could call openness, right? But in terms of the energetic dynamic, right, we can't say that openness is any greater than closeness. Yes and no are two equally important words. My toddler right now, we have to teach him a lot of no. There are schools of parenting that I've seen, and I know people who've done, where you never say no to the toddler, and everyone can make their own choices, and everyone's welcome to see how that works out. I have my opinions on it, but you can probably tell. Yeah, no is as important as yes. Jesus said, "Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no." Right? Very simple equation. As it relates to the heart, it's like, emitting out, drawing in, emitting out, drawing in, emitting out, drawing in, emitting out, drawing in. We don't want that to be imbalanced, right? There are things that we want to be closed to. There are things that we want to remain a mystery. There are things we want to be walled off from. There are things that we never want to expose our hearts to at all, right? There are things in this world that it is good not to expose your hearts to at all. That's the navigation of heart space. The navigation of animate space, again, is not just an animation of like, hey, it's all good and it's all wonderful and I'm free and I can do whatever I want. I'm going to follow every impulse of the heart. That's not the traditional work around heart space. The freedom of the heart comes from having a good anchored practice in which to, explore what truly resonates, free from the kind of impulsive and sometimes trauma informed like imbalances of what we might think resonates at a particular given moment in our lives, and then clear some of that stuff away and find like the deeper resonance. Yeah. Yeah, so what does it mean to follow the heart? I mean, that's really what I was basically just talking about. But if we think that, following the heart means like every impulsive suggestion that my heart makes, I'm going to follow, that can be just as destructive as following the head everywhere. The heart can lie just like the head. The heart is a sensitive field of vibration, and that vibration coalesces in patterns, and those patterns are influenced by all of our experiences, and we might resonate with something in the kind of limited, like immediate capacity of the heart. We might resonate with something that actually isn't ultimately going to serve. I'm sure, like, I mean, I guess you could simplify this and call it like, what is it, like, bad boy syndrome or whatever, when someone's like really attracted to someone who's just like, a jerk, right? And why are we attracted to people who are jerks, right? We're resonating with some vibrational pattern that fills that matches some like interlocking pattern with us that got generated through, you know, experiences that weren't so positive, but that's what we think we want, right? We think we want someone who's a jerk. We don't ultimately want someone who's a jerk, right? So following the heart, as I say, like, yeah, oh yeah, I'm going to follow the heart. I'm going to follow the heart. I'm going to follow the heart. And this kind of idea of like the pinnacle of romantic love and Shakespearean love and the love of the troubadours and all this kind of thing. This is the remake of Romeo and Juliet that came out with Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes way back when. Romeo and Juliet is a perfect example. They followed their hearts. Look where they ended up. Right? Following your heart, like, and they were teenagers, right? Following your teenage heart, um, as I've said, you might have heard me say this, but all history is like littered with the corpses of those who followed their heart right to the pointy end of a sword. Right? I'm going to do it all for love, and I'm going to throw societal convention to the wind and all this kind of stuff. And, sometimes that has consequences, or sometimes we discover after like giving everything up and following our heart, we discover that, oh, maybe that wasn't what we really wanted after all. Right? So we haven't, potentially in that situation, like developed a practice in which we um, understand through the phases of the moon, through time, through meter, through study over time, through gradual work to realign the vibrational field of the heart. We don't yet understand like what it is that our heart really longs for, what our heart really wants. And what our heart really wants, according, to certain traditions, is to be aligned to the great heart. Yeah. And often what the heart really wants is slower and takes place at a different tempo than we're used to, and isn't really associated with like our immediate impulse wants and needs. It's something far, far deeper. The difference between what you could call like impulse and pulsation. Yeah, the heart wants to be aligned to that deeper harmonic pulsation. Yeah. So these questions: what does it mean to follow the heart? What is an open heart? What would the world look like if your heart was expanded to be the size of the world? I know that if I expanded my heart to be the size of the world, there'd be a lot of problems in the world still, right? Sometimes, it's easy to poke at the world's problems and say, like, if I was in charge, none of this would happen, or, how did it ever possibly get this way? And we live within heart space. And so if there's, something that we think needs to be addressed in the world, we can also seek to address it within our own hearts instead. We can also, not instead, that's the wrong word. We can also seek to address it within our own hearts, right? If, one could say like punitive, one-sided, harsh, authoritarian communication models are something that bug us. Let's look within our own hearts and see if that same dynamic exists within us. And let's work to create something different within our own hearts. Because we're not always going to have access to change, the cosmos or the political system or the world, right? on a call yesterday, I said, like, it could be, imagine if we don't change everything, we still have to live with ourselves, and those around us still have to live with us. And so, through the law of as above, so below, through the law of resonance, through the law of the heart, which is that the individual heart is a mirror of the great structure of the cosmos, if we want to change something, then a good place to start is to change